the fullness of life. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Sometimes what Paul Harvey would call the rest of the story, when the story is actually the story of your life. If you're alive and breathing, there's still things for you to learn, there's still things for you to embrace, and I venture to say there's still something left on your bucket list to do. And I believe, even in my 70s, for me, that the best truly is yet unwritten. So today we're going to explore that. And the question of today is this: what's the one choice you might make today to recognize the fullness of life is yours, and that every day, in every way, you're becoming more of who you came here to be? So that's a good question. Let's state it one more time. What's the one choice that you can make today to recognize the fullness of life is yours, and that every day, in every way, you're becoming more of who you came here to be? Wow, more of who we came here to be. You know, when I was little, they had blackboards in the classrooms. The teacher would often ask a special student to come erase the blackboard. It was kind of a nice gift to be chosen to erase the blackboard. And believe it or not, I did get asked. I was a lot more compliant, probably a lot less fun in those days, but I got asked. And I know I wasn't all that much fun because my sister used to call me Little Miss Goody Two Shoes. I wasn't exactly sure what that meant way back then. I knew it wasn't good. And so, true confessions, I got to thinking about this week, and I went and looked it up because I was curious. And it actually came from a nursery rhyme. The nursery rhyme is called The History of Goody Shoes. It was from the 18th century and written by an Irish-born English poet named Oliver Goldsmith. Now, Goody was a poor little girl, and she only had one shoe. And at some point in the story, somebody gave her a pair of shoes. And so she went around saying to everybody, "I have two shoes. I have two shoes." And what happened was they started calling her Goody Two Shoes. As she grew up, she became a wealthy woman, and in nursery rhyme character, she used her wealth for good. So if you look up Goody Two Shoes today, it says a person who is affectionately good or proper, a person who is uncommonly good. And then it goes on to say, because over time, the phrase got to be a little bit more negative, maybe just a mite too good and a bit too optimistic, or a tad too nice. And I'm sure that's the connotation that my sister was using when she talked about me. Now, we're good friends today, and I'm absolutely certain she wouldn't call me a Goody Two Shoes these days. Anyway, back to that blackboard and the chalk and the erasers. Sometimes we'd get to do a deep clean, which meant we got to go wash it down so that it was really a clean slate, pristine, with none of the previous information on it. Now, if you're not old enough to remember blackboards, you've probably at least seen a movie or a TV series that had a blackboard in it. So we're going to use this analogy today, because the amazing thing about blackboards is the teacher would write on them information that was really, really important. She would give the students time to copy it down or to learn it, and then it would get erased. And it would be erased so that she could put yet another lesson on the blackboard. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes actually said, "Life is a blackboard upon which we consciously or unconsciously write those messages which govern us. We hold the chalk and the eraser in our hand." Now, I found those two sentences to be very powerful. Let's look at that first one. Life is a blackboard upon which we consciously or unconsciously write those messages which govern us. So in our blackboard of life, we're constantly writing messages, and a lot of those messages are unconscious messages. And yet we let those messages govern who we are and how we treat others. Now, we look at what happened in the past, and we use it to predict how people are going to behave today. And we often fail to question that some of those beliefs that we had when we were a different age, or we had different religious beliefs maybe, were unconsciously affecting our behavior. Now, I admit that I'm guilty of letting old messages impact me in some of my relationships. I'm happy to say that most of the time it impacts me by expecting people to be really good and expecting good things from people. But there are a few people in my life that push my buttons, and I let those past history of the things that were written on my blackboard a while back to impact how I treat them today. And it's typically with people who matter to me in my life. We take some incident that was on our blackboard a long time ago, and we write it over and over again. And we write it over and over again to the point that we think it's the truth, or that the situation is going to be the same, and we don't get to the conscious behavior of really looking at what's going on now. And off we go down the judgment path of life. So I'm going to invite you this week to kind of look at what messages you've written on your blackboard of life. The good news is that the second sentence in that quote gives us a way out of using those unconscious messages, because the second sentence said, we hold the chalk and the eraser in our hand. Let's pause for how profound that is. We hold not only the chalk, we hold the eraser in our hand. What a choice that gives us. We can erase any of the messages of our life, things that we've already learned and maybe that are serving us, things that we have learned that are no longer serving us, that it's time to let go of. We get to rewrite our beliefs on that blackboard of life. So just for a moment, I'm going to have us pause, and I want you to think of something, whatever pops into your mind first, some behavior that you might want to change, or a belief about something within you that's no longer serving you. So just let whatever comes up for you come up. What if you chose to use your eraser of life and remove whatever popped up for you, to start over and really wash it down good so that you have a clean slate? You have done the deep cleaning that might allow you to actually let go of that belief that's not serving you, or that situation that keeps popping up in your head that maybe brings up feelings that, yes, you need to deal with, and maybe it's time to let it go. Once we see it on the blackboard, once we actually examine those beliefs, we can erase them if we want to. And if it's a deeply ingrained behavior, it might take a bit of time to let go of it, but we know we can do it. I read somewhere this past week, and unfortunately I didn't write down the reference, so I can't give it to you, but I remember the words. We have not yet plumbed the depths and possibilities. And I don't know where it went from there, but it was about plumbing the depths and possibilities that caught my attention. Because for many people, we just live on the surface part of our lives. What if we actually plumb the depths and the possibilities of our own awareness? We could use that eraser, and then we could use the chalk to write empowering messages on our blackboard of life. Wow, think about it. We could plumb the depths and possibilities that are available to us and write something empowering so that we know that the divine is for us. And all we have to do is ask or allow the divine to help us to get through whatever it is that we're facing. In the reading today, Debbie read these words of Ernest Holmes. There is unto me a fullness of life, which is divine in its origin eternal in its presence, and always fully available. I'm going to ask you, do you actually believe that the fullness of life is always available to you? I know sometimes when we get older, we think, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, so why should I try? Or the best parts of my life are already behind me. I want you to stop that thought. I want you to erase those thoughts that limit who you are, that don't allow you to plunge into the possibilities that life has to hold for you. Have any of you ever heard the song, The Best Is Yet to Come? It used to be one of my songs that I really liked. And true, it has to do with relationships. But it's true about life too. So when we strengthen our relationship with the divine, the best is yet to come. The best is yet unwritten. And if you want it, you can choose it to be. If you want to have the best years of your life to come, if you want the best to be yet unwritten, use your blackboard of life to write down your dream, whatever that dream might be. Write it down, put it in writing, and then stare at it. That's what the little kids do. They stare at the blackboard, and sometimes we're confused about what we see on the blackboard. And eventually we start to get it because it's a lesson that we've come here to learn. So take out your chalk, write your dream on the blackboard of life, and wake up every day knowing that no matter how good yesterday was, today is going to be even better. We can write that on the blackboard. No matter how good yesterday was, today is going to be even better. Boy, what kind of a lesson is that? I said last week that we live in a universe of infinite possibilities and that things we can hardly imagine are possible. And if you didn't hear it last week, I want you to hear it today. Things we can hardly imagine are possible. Believe in the fullness of your life. Write the rest of your life story the way you would love your life to be. Erase any parts of the story that aren't working for you. There were a lot of famous people that actually lived in our time, and some that lived slightly before us. Ray Kroc actually went to the McDonald's brothers and said, you ought to franchise this one little burger chain that was in San Bernardino. He was 50 years old plus, and he was a struggling milkshake machine salesman. And yet he convinced these brothers to go buy land and to franchise McDonald's. Well, you know where that went. Look at what McDonald's is today. And let's think about Starbucks. Starbucks is one of the most recognizable symbols in the entire world, up there with McDonald's and Superman. It didn't start in an easy way, though. Howard Schultz had to go to 242 banks to get a loan. 242, that's perseverance. He was desperate to secure the loan because his wife was pregnant. He finally found a doctor and a couple other investors that were willing to invest in him because he persevered, and he knew what he had written on his blackboard of life was, I want to start this Starbucks chain. And what about the Colonel? We all know Colonel Sanders, and all of us probably know that he didn't even start Kentucky Fried Chicken till he was getting Social Security checks. Now, that's a time in your life where you're actually working on other things. Most of us, a lot of us, are starting to think about slowing down, and here he was, starting a new chain. Thomas Edison didn't live in our lifetime, but he took over 1,000 times to actually create the light bulb, and all he said was, I know another way that it's not going to work. What if we looked at people like these people and people like Walt Disney? Did you know that Walt Disney was fired from an animation company because they said he wasn't creative enough? And with his last few dollars, he invented Mickey Mouse, and lots of people told him, that's going to fail. Mickey Mouse, really a mouse? How is that going to have any, connection with people? But he persisted, and we all know about Walt Disney and his big parks and how that's worked around the world. So learn to take calculated risk. Stop doing what you don't love doing and do what you love. Write on that blackboard of life what it is you want to do, what it is that you would love your life to look like, and then focus on that and persevere. Because that's the way that you're going to end up in a place where you actually have the life that you want to live. One in our readings in this thing called Life, which was a series that we did last year, there's a quote, and here's the quote, and I want to get it right, so I'm going to read it here. There is an infinite reservoir of life within us. We may block its passage, we may shortcut its circuit, but the reservoir is still there, and the flow is always ready to resume its course when we reopen the channel. Our problem is not with life itself, but the use we are making of it. So maybe instead of becoming victims of old beliefs and old behaviors, we stop blocking that reservoir of life. We start using our eraser so that we can start researching the things that we want to quit doing and how we can get help if we need to stop doing those things. And we start using our blackboard to write down the things in our life that we would love doing, the things in our life that we're passionate about, like Schultz was with Starbucks, or Walt Disney was with his parks and with Mickey Mouse. And just on a final note, when we think about the best is yet unwritten, that requires us to actually recognize that maybe there's some times that we might need help, and we could ask for help. If there's something that's on your blackboard that keeps showing back up, some unconscious behavior or some unconscious trait that you want to get rid of, ask for help. Jesus always said, ask and it's given. So we can ask the divine. We can ask our friends to help us. I do recommend that you go to somebody you can trust. That's usually a good thing when you're asking for help. But above all, persevere. Life was never meant to be as hard as we make it. But if we persevere, we can still have the best yet unwritten. In the reading today, you also heard, the infinite richness of God is mine to enjoy. The infinite richness of God is yours to enjoy. Write it on the blackboard of your life. The infinite richness of God is mine to enjoy. Wake up every day knowing that no matter how great yesterday was, today can be even better, and that the best is yet unwritten. So let's pray. We just move into this time of recognizing that the infinite richness of God is each of ours. That all that God is lives right within us. What I know to be the truth today is that you'll be aware of what you're writing on your blackboard of life. that you can learn to erase those things that are unconscious messages that aren't serving you, and write the conscious messages on your life about the fullness of life being yours. I know that for each of us, no matter how wonderful our life has been up until now, the best is still unwritten. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I really do believe that the best is yet unwritten. I'm grateful that I really do believe that the fullness of life, the richness of God, is mine for the asking. And it's from all that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action, because I know the truth, that the best is yet unwritten, and that God has said yes to that, and yes to whatever it is that we write on our blackboards that we want to complete in our lifetime, or that gives us joy or brings love and peace and calm into our lives. So with the divine yes, I can just let it be. Know that God is doing the heavy lifting and I can just enjoy my life. I say amen, and we affirm it together, and so it is. So this is our time in our service where we actually ask for donations. So we have a blessing that we say, from the love of pure spirit within me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal, bless, and prosper. It does good work in the world and returns to me multiplied abundantly. And there's a lot of ways that we have provided for you to be able to give to the center. There's a donate button on our website. You can use Zella or Venmo, and the number for that is 225-287-8887. You can text your amount to 225-320-5100, or you can mail a donation to the Center for Spiritual Living in care of Reverend Larry Marie Heil, 445 Magnolia Wood Avenue in Baton Rouge, 70808. All of that information is on our website if you didn't catch it now, but we appreciate all of your donations. It's helping us to pay our rents, and we can come back together as a community when the world is back open again and it's safe for us to be as a community. And I'll be keeping you informed on that. I also want to invite you, if you aren't getting the words of wisdom, to go out to the website and sign up for our newsletter, and I will add you to the words of wisdom list. In addition to the donations, we do still have community time. It's in we do it by a live discussion on the phone. And we do it at 11:30, so it gives you a little bit of time to take a short break and then call into the conference line. The conference line is 515-604-9000. That's 515-604-9000. And the participant code is 475220. So join us at 11:30. It's always a great discussion. We talk about the service, and we talk about the topic of the service, and then we typically we do a process to help you actually embody what was going on in the service and the message of today. So this is the end of our time together, and I just want you to remember that Disney claims to be the happiest place on earth, but the Center for Spiritual Living in Southeast Louisiana is definitely the most joyful. We get together, we have fun together, we encourage each other to conscious, to have conscious spiritual living. And we come together to help each other to know that we can write on our blackboards that the best is yet unwritten. So until we meet again, may you be wrapped in the arms of love and kindness. And may you write on your blackboard something that's going to thrill you and bring great joy into your life for the rest that is yet unwritten. Thank you for coming. Bye now.